with everyone. I'd just like to clarify with this hymn. I wasn't very familiar with it, but I was familiar with the tune that we sang it to. Even though in our version of the hymn, it's not sang to the same notes, other people sing the same lyrics to that tune. So we actually sang to the tune of 167, which is Alleluia, Sing to Jesus. But we sang, Jesus, what a friend of sinners. So it's cool how we can match lyrics up to music, and timing makes it work, thankfully. So I just wanted to let everyone know that. It's not one that is sung very much in churches, but it's always good to explore all those 700-800 plus hymns we have in our books, that we can at least say we've sung each one of them once in our lifetime, right? Anyway, for as long as I have been alive, I have discovered new things that I haven't even had the slightest idea existed. I follow these channels on YouTube that explore all these interesting features, such as why a certain seafood is so expensive, or why certain spices cost so much, just to name a few. And it's a curiosity I've always had for no reason whatsoever, except to know. It makes a good icebreaker sometimes in a conversation that doesn't seem to go anywhere. And here's a top 10 from a scientific or engineering point of view. I'm going to make a countdown of the 10 most expensive things to date, according to scientists and engineers. Number 10 being plutonium. Some of you might have heard of plutonium. You can mainly find it in the hearts of nuclear reactors, and they power satellites that need long-lasting energy, and it's derived from the nuclear decay of uranium, but it can be found, though rarely, naturally. Plutonium accounts for around 1/3 of nuclear fusion energy. I'm not sure if this is the same nuclear energy that the government decided to use for those nuclear submarines that you may have heard on the news, but maybe plutonium is one of those things that are in it. But this form of power can also be used for space travel. The Voyager 1 probe, for example, has platinum batteries, and they haven't failed to this day and are set to keep powering the probe well into 2025. The cost per gram for plutonium is around $6,000, so around that $11,500 mark. Number 9, emeralds. I knew there was a reason why I liked emeralds. The term emerald first appeared in English around the 14th century, so in the 1300s, and is thought to derive originally from the Latin esmeralda. That's a very Latin sounding name, or esmeraldus, and their Greek roots meaning green diamond. Emeralds are graded using the 4 fundamental criteria. That's the 4 C's, so color, clarity, cut, and carat, the weight of a stone. In grading colored gemstones, color is typically by far the most significant factor. However, clarity is ranked as a close second in the grading of emeralds. For an emerald to be regarded as a top gemstone, it must have a high degree of transparency in addition to the pure verdant green hue that it also is known for. The cost per gram for an emerald is roughly $20,000, so 39,000 Australian dollars, or $100,000 US, so 200,000 or $190,000 dollars per gram in Australian dollars, or per carat. 8. Grandidierite. Grandidierite was initially found in southern Madagascar. You might know that as the place where the lemurs live, the creatures that look like a very slender monkey, King Julian from the movie Madagascar. Very expressive character in the cartoons. But grandidierite was found in southern Madagascar almost 122 years ago, in 1902. So 101 years ago, actually, 121 years ago. The French explorer Alfred Grandidier, who lived in the late 19th century to the early 20th century, he explored Madagascar and he researched its natural history, and that's why that mineral is named in his honour. Grandidierite takes on a bluer colour with higher iron content in it, and it's also got the iron analogue of Grandidierite, which is the recently discovered gemstone of the blue Omnilite. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. According to the viewing angle, it can display one of three colours. It displays a dark blue-green. It's sometimes colourless as well, or a very pale yellow, or just a very dark green. Grandidierite scores 7.5 on the Mohs scale, which the top score is a perfect 10, which indicates that they are quite hard. They're on the harder side, more towards this hardness of a diamond. And Grandidierite specimens with significant translucent facets are very uncommon. The largest cut specimen of which the Gemological Institute of America is aware weighs about 760 carats. And the cost per gram is about $34,400 per gram, or up to about 350,000 Australian dollars per carat. 7, painite. Painite is another very expensive material, and possibly one you haven't heard about yet. It was recognised as a new gemstone in the 1950s, and it was initially discovered in Myanmar, or Burma, by the British mineralogist and gem trader Arthur C.D. Payne. So another gemstone named after an explorer or someone who discovered it. He mistakenly thought it was a ruby, right? And the mineral was named after it was determined to be a brand new mineral species. Painite can cost anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000 per carat due to its scarcity. The mineral comprises of calcium, zirconium, boron, aluminium, and oxygen. The mineral's usual orange-red to brownish-red colour, comparable to a topaz, is caused by tiny levels of chromium and vanadium. A lot of elements and minerals that I'm throwing at you this morning, and which are also present in trace amounts. Due to the infrequent interaction between zirconium and boron in nature, the mineral is extremely rare. The crystals are naturally hexagonal, and only 2 had been turned into faceted jewels before the end of the year 2004, so around 19 years ago. Recent discoveries in the Mogok area of Burma might yield more of these beautiful stones. That's where all the mountain ranges there are, near the rainforests. Regardless of their price, they are in high demand at the moment. And the cost per gram is around 580 US dollars per gram. $580,000 per gram, 580,000 Australian. Number 6, tawhite, or tawhite. It's a very new type of gemstone discovered in Tanzania. Tawhite is an incredibly rare gemstone that has only been recently discovered and recently become desirable by collectors. It has colour ranges from red to purple, and they're thought to be less than 10 of the rarest red ones in existence. So rare is this gemstone that all the known harvested type of tawhite would only fill half a cup today. So that's all the tawhite that's been extracted in the world, and it can only fill about half a cup. The cost per gram is about 20,000 US dollars, and about 1,500, so 3,000 to 6,000 US dollars per carat, or Australian dollars per carat. I'm getting lost in this currency exchange, but the next one is going to be valued in British pounds. Tritium. Tritium is forged in the hearts of nuclear reactors, so another radioactive material, by irradiating lithium metal or lithium-bearing ceramic pebbles. It is also one of the most expensive materials on Earth. It is a super heavy type of hydrogen. Hydrogen is the first element on the scientific periodic table. This one's a lot heavier. And tritium is also a key component used to fuel some nuclear weapons. It is sometimes used for glow-in-the-dark stuff, like watch hands, and as a tracer in biomedical and academic research. Have no fear though, the beta rays it produces are very weak and they can't penetrate human skin. Tritium also has a shallow health risk if ingested, but I don't know why anyone would. Though you should probably rethink your life if you're in the habit of eating it. The cost per gram is 30,000 British pounds. So what would that be? That would be about 95,000 Australian per gram. Number 4, diamonds. Natural diamonds have long been prized for their beauty and extreme hardness. They are the hardest known substance on Earth, with a Mohs scale score of 10 and a Vickers hardness in the range of 70 to 150 GPa. Cost varies widely depending on the diamond in question. You can get very quality diamonds, or you can get very low quality diamonds as well. But there are some diamonds that are like blue diamonds, fetching about $26,000 on average for a half-carat stone. And a deep blue and vivid blue diamonds cost around $75,000 for a quarter-carat stone. High-carat blue diamonds can go for upwards of about $4 million a carat. That's insane. These stones are forged at the very depths of the Earth's crust and upper mantle, and as such have experienced intense temperatures and pressures. As we say, pressure makes diamonds, right? Blue diamonds are incredibly rare and found in 3 areas: Australia, South Africa, and India. Their blue colour comes from the element boron. Their hardness gives them many industrial applications, but synthetic rather than natural diamonds are used most of the time. Artificial equivalents are also a lot cheaper to buy. So a lab-created diamond will cost more than less than a mined diamond that was extracted naturally. Diamonds jewelry is one of the most popular choices for engagement rings, and the cost is up to 100,000, so 200,000 plus per carat, depending on the purity, color, and all those things they use to grade a stone. Next one, number 3. We're into our top 3 now on the podium. Californium. Scientists create californium by bombarding curium with alpha particles. This reaction creates the radioactive chemical element with an atomic number of 98. There are currently 10 known isotopes known to exist, and an isotope is a combination of the chemical structure of the substance. It can help treat certain forms of cancer, detecting gold and silver in ores, and residual oil with nearly depleted reservoirs. It can also be created artificially on Earth, but it is speculated to be made in supernovae, plural. It's very expensive. The cost per gram can be anywhere between 10 to 27 million US dollars. So that's about $10 to $27 per microgram, which is tiny, but still very expensive. It's almost you're buying a speck of dust basically for $27. Number 2, endohedral fullerenes. Now, endohedral fullerenes are normal halogrenes with extra atoms, ions, or clustered within inner spheres. The very first lanthanum complex was created in the mid-80s, 1985, and it is intentionally a cage of carbon atoms and with a nitrogen atom trapped inside it. It could have applications for highly accurate atomic clocks. So the scientists love this stuff. Currently, 2 varieties exist: endohedral metafullerenes and non-metal doped fullerenes. The cost per gram is anywhere between $145 million to $167 million a gram, and that's US dollars as well. Number 1, I didn't think this one would make number 1 at all. Antimatter. Antimatter is by far the most expensive material on Earth, according to scientists and engineers today. Although only very small amounts have ever been produced, there is currently no way of storing them. So buying something for so much and you can't even store it. It requires the highly sophisticated technology found in places like the European Organization for Nuclear Research. It's abbreviated in the French abbreviation of CERN, the Conseil Européen pour la Recherche Nucléaire. I don't think I pronounced that properly, but my French isn't very good. And today, a gram of antimatter, if it were available, that's what they say, would be worth about approximately 80 trillion US dollars. That's 150 trillion Australian dollars. The cost per gram, it ranges anywhere between 62.5 and 100 trillion. Now that I've given our scientists some content to debate about, I think there is an even more precious resource that is so valuable that money cannot buy, and which is why I entitled today's message, The Most Precious Resource. I'm thinking of the resource that some of us have showing on our phones or our wrists. Time. Being a bit of a reader and a movie buff, I think there's stories based on time, even a lot of science fiction about the fantasy of time. What if, all these what if movies, and time travel even, being able to pause things, being able to repeat certain events that have occurred in your life is a big phenomena in science fiction today. These stories also show how important time is. These stories include Back to the Future, Marty McFly, a 17-year-old high school student who is accidentally sent 30 years into the past, in a time-traveling DeLorean, invented by his close friend, the Maverick Dr. Brown, or Doc, as he calls him throughout the movie. Good movie to watch. And you see how the events that he changes in that past affect the present day as well. There's also The Time Machine. It was a book written, but it basically talks about a man's vision for a utopian society is disillusioned when traveling forward into time. Here it reveals a dark and a dangerous society. Click. A more recent one. A workaholic architect finds a universal remote control that allows him to fast forward and rewind different parts of his life. Complications arrive when the remote starts to overrule his choices. In Time, a science fiction that is set in a future where people stop aging at 25 years of age, but are engineered to live only one more year. Having the means to buy your way out of the situation using time as the currency, it is a shot at an immortal youth. Groundhog Day. That's a very famous one. A narcissistic, self-centered weatherman finds himself in a time loop on Groundhog Day. So he wakes up to the same day over and over, and the day keeps repeating until he gets it right. About Time. At the age of 21, Tim discovers he can travel in time and change what happens and has happened in his own life. His decision to make his world a better place by getting a girlfriend turns out not to be as easy as you might think. And then there's a more recent one, Still Time, an Italian film. In his time-jumping drama comedy, a workaholic who's always in a rush now wants life to slow down when he finds himself leaping ahead a year every couple hours. There are more stories revolving around time that we could think of, but we'd be here listing movies and stories instead of getting to the main point. Once time passes by, that's it. You never get it back. And there's a folklore saying that time waits for no one. Benjamin Franklin has also been said to say, lost time is never found again. Theophrastus has been said to say, time is the most valuable thing a man or a person can spend. Harvey Mackay said, time is free, but it's priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. Once you've lost it, you can never get it back. Napoleon said this about time: there is one kind of robber whom the Lord does not strike at, and who steals what is the most precious to men, time. Seneca says, it's not that we have little time, but more that we waste a good deal of it. So it's not that we have little time, but more that we waste a great deal of it. And possibly my new favorite quote in this field, by an author by the name of Leo Christopher: there's only one thing more precious than our time, and that's who we spend it on. Makes you think a little bit, doesn't it? Time is poetically depicted as a relentless thief. It's scientifically explained as a fourth dimension, and practically seen as a valuable and limited resource. It is one of the biggest riddles in our universe. The truth is, our decisions and actions define whether time is our enemy or our ally. Taking control of our time means making the right decisions, realizing what is the most important thing for us, and getting the most out of that time that we have here in our lives. David in the Psalms wrote this, Psalms chapter 90, verse 12. A very short phrase, but I'll read it. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Anzac Day is around the corner, and what got me to think of today's message to you wasn't just the proximity to the dates, but certain experiences I have had or recently have seen that have prompted my thoughts on whether I'm being a good steward of my own time that I have in my life. Rewind time back 105 years or so, and the world was a different place. The Great War was happening, and what would a young man or woman be thinking, or what would a young soldier be thinking as they were about to charge from one trench to another? I'll share a poem by Siegfried Sassoon. It's called Absolution. The anguish of the earth absolves our eyes, till beauty shines in all that we can see. War is our scourge, yet war has made us wise. And fighting for our freedom, we are free. Horror of wounds and anger at the foe, and loss of things desired, all these must pass. We are the happy legion, for we know time's but a golden wind that shakes the grass. There was an hour where we were loth to part. From life we longed to share no less than others. Now having claimed this heritage of heart, what need we more, my comrades and my brothers? A romanticized reality, once again, of those last moments a soldier has before he makes that ultimate sacrifice. Time's but a golden wind that shakes the grass. All of us in every moment are a moment closer to closing the book of our personal stories. I have had thoughts where my last moment came close. A few years back, I could have been killed in a car accident. More recently, I had a deer run into my car on my way to work. That made me remember another time where a housemate and I were fortunate to stop in time before driving into a pack of brumbies on the Snowy Mountains Highway down south, Jindabyne Way. Yeah, great. God protects, and I'm fortunate to be here today. But even if he didn't, have I lived a life that was worthy of honoring God? It makes you think. Just over a week ago, the life of a very compassionate paramedic, Stephen Tuffer, ended way too soon. He was only 29, younger than me. A young father with another child on the way and only married for 5 weeks. Parked at a McDonald's parking lot in Campbelltown at 5:30 in the morning, having some much needed sustenance, and murdered. Whatever happens in our lives, no matter how long or short it may be, we want to leave an honourable legacy behind. Not so much in the eyes of others, but in the eyes of God as well, because God knows. More importantly, we need to prepare for that next life we read about in the Bible. Ephesians chapter 5, 15 to 17 says this. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. What is God's will? Well, we were talking about one of the messages that the first angels in the 3 angels message talked about at Sabbath school this morning. Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is about to come. So another thing to consider about time is found in 1 John chapter 2 verse 17. The world and its desires pass away, and sooner or later this world will end as well. But whoever does the will of God lives forever. That's a great promise. And that's a part of that 3 angels message that our church talks about as well. Proverbs 27:1. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. We live in an uncertain world. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. We're not psychics. We can't predict anything. Romans 13 verse 11. And do this, understanding the present time. The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber. When's the best time to wake up? Now. Because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. Every moment is a moment closer to that time when everything will just cease. And now my final passage to consider this. James chapter 4, and I'll be reading from verse 13 through to 17. Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Just like Siegfried Sassoon's poem says, time's but a golden wind that shakes the grass. Our lives are like a mist that only appear for a little while and then vanish, like the morning dew, vaporizes into the air and never to be seen again. 15. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that, God willing. 16. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. 17. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is a sin for them. We know what we need to do with our time, and that's do the Lord's will. And it's a simple thing, but with the lives that we live in, and I encourage everyone to maybe read Ephesians chapter 5. The whole chapter itself is very relatable for me personally. I realize that I am a sinner. I've done a lot of wrong in my life. But I'm also very thankful that we have Jesus, a friend of sinners, who has come to steer us back on the right path. And all he wants us to do is accept his gift and share it with the rest of the world. And that's where we have the most precious resource. It's only running out. We never get time back as it passes. So my thoughts and my hopes for all of us today is that we consider to use that time we have left as wisely as we can. We need to get down on our knees, pray, and ask God what his will for us is. Each of us have a special plan that God has handcrafted for each and every one of us. And the awesome thing is we can start now. Amen. Our next